Good morning, Twin Cities. Welcome to your Sunday and welcome to Reckoning with Real Estate, a show about the American dream and building a better real estate company. My name is Paige. I'm with the Real Estate Collaborative. I'm joined with Megan, who's also with REC. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Paige.
Hi, Megan. And also we have Leora, who is joining us online from sunny California, or maybe rainy California. I'm not sure, but from California nonetheless, where it's probably warmer than it is here. But the last episode, we talked about, Megan's going to take this part.
Yes, we did kind of a overview of housing, of what NIMBY means, not in my backyard, YIMBY, yes, in my backyard. And that's why Leora is here. She is with YIMBY Action National in California, where she's joining us from. But so we thought maybe this time we could go deeper into, you know, if you're out there listening and you're thinking, I want to advocate for more housing. I see, you know, certainly folks on the streets who need a place to live. What can I do? So maybe, Leora, do you want to kind of introduce yourself one more time in case people missed last week, and then give a quick little note about your work with YIMBY?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Leora Tanwatko-Ross. I'm the California director of YIMBY Action. And that means I organize. It means I'm basically a camp counselor and a cheerleader. And it's great fun. And if you want to advocate for housing in your town, the first thing you should do is to go to yimbyaction.org, and you should join as a member. You can pay or not. We do have free volunteer options, but the reason why you should do that is because once you do that, you get into our Slack, which is a very exciting place, and it's a place where you can ask people questions, and they can range from like, why is there a big hole in the middle of my downtown with, you know, a half-constructed building that hasn't been touched in 10 years to, you know, I have a meeting with a planner in my town. What should I ask them? So that's kind of one route. The other route, which if you're kind of a renegade and not a joiner, you should go to your city's website and like click around and see if I'm sure there's meetings that are happening. Read those agendas, maybe go to them. I have to warn you, they're very boring and wonky, but that is where your city is made. In those really boring technical meetings, people are making decisions that impact you and your rent in your town. So, you know, go to meetings, see who else is there, talk to those people, talk to the people who work for your city, try to meet with them. And that's how I started.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, you know, people can also do things like write letters and emails and do things that are maybe a little easier than going to a meeting, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Right. The meetings are, you know, I'm thinking, 3:30 downtown St. Paul for city council meetings are hard for a lot of folks to get to.
Yeah.
Or, at night, the planning commission meetings at 6 or 7. Well, that is difficult. But one easy step for especially people listening in the Twin Cities is you can go to Twin Cities YIMBY and join our list and get involved. We are always sending out information on, different planning commission or city council meetings where they might be voting on any sort of building project that would increase housing in the Twin Cities, which we all know we desperately need here. So that's another way to get involved. And if you can't go, what's really great about YIMBY Action that we know from being involved in the Twin Cities YIMBY, again, yes, in my backyard, is that we try to make it easy for folks. So if you can't be at the meeting, then we say, here is an email. The verbiage is here for you. You can honestly copy and paste this and send it out. Or if you want to add a little bit of your own information, you can too. But that makes a difference. And I think that, and Leora, you can speak to this as well. I think people think, I don't know, does a phone call or does an email? But when you talk to city council members, mayors, people involved in politics in your city or state, we hear all the time, we need to hear from you. And when you reach out, it does make a difference.
Oh yeah, totally. And if you're talking locally, I mean, there are some towns, especially here, where like the decisions are decided by 12 or 15 votes. Like that means that you as a person, especially if you are friendly and you know other people in town, you can have a lot of power, literally just by yourself.
Yep.
And it's very cool to go to a meeting. Like if you start talking to start sending emails, start writing letters, like people will come up to you in City Hall. They'll press business cards into your hand. I swear this will happen. And they'll be like, oh, can you please call me? Like, I really want to talk to you. And you're like, okay, yeah, nice to meet you. It's a very empowering experience to be taken seriously, which you should be as a constituent of your town. It's very different than, lobbying in DC or even at the state level. Local politics is incredibly empowering.
Yeah, there's when I was doing a little research on Leora and kind of her background and watching videos and stuff, I obviously went down a rabbit hole.
I hope you didn't find those college pictures on Facebook.
No, I didn't. But I did find your Substack, which I have to say, Megan, you should go look at it. I'll send it to you. It's pretty great. I mean, it's not about, maybe parts of it are about housing, but it's like little short vignettes from your life, which are pretty sweet. And you're a very good writer. My favorite one was, okay, I'm not going to go. When you're at the wedding and you gave the speech about death, that like spoke to me. I'm like, well, that makes sense.
Thanks for saying that. That's my most read post.
Is it really?
Turns out people like to read about death.
Yes. I don't think we talk about death and dying enough in this country at all. I think, so I appreciate it that you just put it out there at a celebration of a marriage. Thought that was awesome. But then I saw somebody else's Substack, and I'm not going to remember who this is, but it's about activism, and I really liked it. And maybe wait, Leora, I think this is yours. You can tell me if it's yours or not. It's from a New York Times piece on puzzles and play. Play in general is the practice of seeking and causing mutually desirable sorts of trouble, said Brett Rothstein, a historian of play at Indiana University, Bloomington. When people take a political action, they are engaging in a kind of troublemaking, but it's actually play. We're playing together. It's much more fun if you approach it that way. I love that.
Thank you I mean, that's how I try to approach it because, and this is interesting because I'm a professional agitator, right? And honestly, most of the time, the thing that agitates people is talking about how effed up something is, and I got really tired of that personally, to be honest, even though it gets the clicks. And that's why I have my Substack, is because I am always like trying to like like the explainer video genre where like someone is like, oh, this terrible thing is happening. Let me explain to you why it's so bad. Like that's something that I have to do for my job sometimes. And when I have that lens for too long, it makes me sad. And I think there is this approach that I try to bring every single time I can, which is we have this ability to change our little worlds. And the best way to do that is to do it in a way that's really fun for you personally. Because if you're having fun, everyone around can tell, and they're like, what's that lady doing? I want to do that. And that is sort of an antidote to this, like, you get the text from the Democratic Party, right? Or like the emails, like it really has kind of gone the other way. And so I, as often as I can, try to to bring the positivity. And that's what YIMBY is. YIMBY is yes.
Mhm.
Like it is yes in a world of no. We are the
Right.
yes people.
Well, and it's one of our favorite quotes at REC is, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem.
Mhm.
And so YIMBY is very solution oriented.
Right.
And I love the idea of, activism as an advocacy, as play. I mean, I'm at a city council meeting and I am so agitated. I'm pretty sure my blood pressure goes up like 20 or 30 points because just
Right.
it's hard for me.
Absolutely. I've been there a million times. It's not good for your health.
No.
And
But Paige, how many bookmarks or like drink
Matches.
have you made? Have you knitted at those meetings?
Oh,
Angrily knitted.
that's what I have to knit when I'm sitting through those meetings.
and that's what you have to do. Like
Yes,
maybe
and
I'll
that's
write a
what I was
Substack on
saying.
this.
You can do that. Bring a book if
Right.
they're at a boring part, and you can do that. So I'm just
Right.
telling you, if you have never been to one, you should go. It
Yeah.
really is fascinating. Try and like mark some time. And that's where you're absolutely right, Laura, that's where things happen. And there's not many people in that room.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think especially now with how fractured and broken our
Mhm.
federal government is, it just feels like it's, several years ago, I thought the federal government was super sexy and interesting. I just don't anymore. I
Mhm.
mean, I think local government is kind of sexy and interesting. And to your point, that is where the change happens,
Yep.
at least the change that is important and affects your community and your neighborhood and kind of how you feel about being in the world. So that's a really good point.
Yeah. And you can go and not say anything. Just,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you don't have to just go check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the listeners out there, that is your homework over the next
Yes.
week or two. Go to a city council meeting. Oh, and you can also watch them online. Most of them have the CCTV or whatever it's called. Is that
And
what
if
it's
you're
called?
already involved, your homework is to do a little thing that makes it more fun for you, whether
Yes.
that's knitting during a meeting. So I secretly am working on a novel. Sometimes when I'm in these long meetings, I'm like, oh man,
Nice.
I'm
That's
gonna,
awesome.
give my character this sort of speech patterns that this council member who's been bloviating on for half
I
an
love
hour, right? I'm sort of just, and once I started to think that way, then I was like, oh, this meeting is not a waste of my time. It's
Yep.
research, so.
Yep.
Character development.
Yeah,
Well, they
exactly.
certainly are.
I know lots of characters in the
Yes.
city council meeting on both sides
Yep.
and
Yep.
with the audience as well, generally speaking.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, well, I think we're going to head into break, and we are reckoning with real estate, and we are going to talk to Leora a little bit more in a couple minutes. So we'll see you on the other side.
Bringing down the light, every swing you take, mine autumn.
Welcome back to Reckoning with Real Estate, a show about the American dream and building a better real estate company. This is the second half of the show, and we're talking to Leora Tanwatko-Ross with YIMBY Action, based out of California, although they have chapters all over the country, including one in the Twin Cities. And we're going to talk a little bit about zoning, everyone's favorite subject. And Leora, during the break, you had a fun fact about zoning. So why don't you share that with our listeners?
One of Obama's speechwriters basically kept deleting the word zoning from his speeches because he wanted to talk about it. Obama is a huge fan of more housing, and he knows how important it is for cities and Americans. But it's wonky and it's not sexy. And so he doesn't say it in his speeches.
Zoning. We'll just say it a lot for the next 13 minutes. What was I going to say about, zoning? And
well, I was going to say we have one of YIMBY Actions that you have wonderful swag that and listeners can go on to, is it yimbyaction.com, I think? Is that the website?
Yeah, it's .org.
And there's some pretty funny stuff on there, but also some great items that you can purchase. And one of them, and one of my favorites, is a t-shirt that says Legalize housing. That's a great conversation starter for folks when you're wearing that out and about, right?
It is. Yeah. I have people stop me all the time and ask me about it. And they're very good quality too. And they're cotton, and yeah, it's lovely. I think you can go to ZAZZLE.com too. Don't you have a lot of your stuff on ZAZZLE? So
Yes.
if anybody's looking for some YIMBY swag, those are the two places you can go. So Legalize housing ties right into the idea of zoning. So Leora, would you take a few minutes and explain to our listeners what zoning is?
Zoning is the rules for what is allowed on a particular piece of land. And that includes the uses. So is a school allowed here, or commercial, or a hotel, or housing? And then it can get all the way down to the nitty-gritty details of how many parking stalls need to be here for every unit? How tall can this be? How dense can it be? How much of the surface area of the site can be covered by a building? It can get really nerdy really fast.
Yeah. And along those lines, what does restrictive zoning mean?
It means when you have a piece of land, you can say only one residential unit is allowed to be built on this piece of land.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, regardless of like if there's space or, or like what the owner of the property wants to do with it.
right. So as an example, like in our metro area, like in the suburbs, it's often you can have one residential property per, let me say it a different way, 4 residential properties per acre, which then means pretty large lot sizes, which then means they're more expensive, and the infrastructure, the sewer and water, is more expensive. Everything just becomes more expensive, which means certain people, the lower end of the economic spectrum, won't be able to afford to live there, which back in the 50s and 60s was kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
To keep people out. And I guess that's more exclusionary zoning.
Well, and we were talking in the last episode last week, and then this week, oftentimes you think of building housing, and folks are talking about people on the street and trying to house unhoused folks. But like that example that you just gave is a perfect example of, we're talking about right now, given, if you have an average job and you're living in thinking about any city in Minnesota, housing, the affordability of homes for anyone is really hard right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we don't have the prices that California has, Leora, but they're very high compared to where we were at 5 years ago. And it's really hard for people to afford homes. And so when we're talking about zoning and we're talking about getting people into homes, we're talking about getting everyone into homes. I think the last couple episodes we've talked about like the extremes, but we're seeing in our industry too, in real estate, that it's really difficult for folks who purchase their starter home to be able to afford that next level home. Their family's growing, they're outgrowing their homes. And yes, we know that back in the day, people had multiple children and living in a tiny home. But if your choice is to want to go to that next level home, that is unaffordable for certainly many of my friends. And they're still in their starter homes.
Yeah.
It's a different world out there for home buyers. And
yeah.
I mean, something that is really striking for me, like when I was learning about all this stuff, right? I was observing how stable my own family was because of my grandmother's purchase of her home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, why wouldn't? Yeah, I was reading about these multi-generational houses, right? Usually sometimes Latino or other I don't know, but people who are like, they have one home and they have a lot of people living there. they have scraped together enough money to buy a plot of land. Why wouldn't they try to build separate spaces for themselves? And the answer is because of zoning. That's
Yep.
illegal.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yes.
And it's only recently in, in California and Minnesota where you're like, oh, you can have an ADU, you can have a JADU.
Right.
And what that means is that you can have your own space even if you can't afford to buy your own home. That's all that
Yeah.
it means, and this forced crowding. It really is like it's sort of mandated crowding.
Mhm.
And it's something, as I mentioned in the last episode, I lived with my parents. Right now, I actually live on a YIMBY compound. We have 4 units that the other
A
families and
YIMBY
I all,
compound.
yeah.
Tell me more about that. That's so intriguing. A YIMBY compound. That's a new phrase for
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, we have we have the main house and we divided it into 3 units. And then we built an ADU. And
Wow.
so
I love
there are
that.
4 families on the property. And the way that it works is that we all signed a contract that says all the kids who are growing up on the property, so my 2 kids, my sister's kids, they will inherit the property and it will be divided up amongst them so
Mhm.
that as we make improvements, we know that we are going to see the value of them
Wow.
and we don't really have, I mean, I think the issue here, right, is we don't really have a mechanism for selling our piece of it if we wanted to.
Yep.
Right. Right. Yep. So you're kind of stuck with each other, is what you're saying.
we are blissfully stuck with each other, but we have a separate system, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We like pour all of our love and money into this parcel and then our kids will get it.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, that's
We're
how we figured it
we're seeing, and I'm guessing you're seeing it in the Bay Area, and I know other markets are probably seeing it too, where unrelated families are going in, and we work a lot in St. Paul, and there are a lot of big houses, like turn of the century mansions. And we just recently sold one to 3 different families, and they bought the same house. And so it's not
Wow.
separated out necessarily into 3 separate apartments, but it's like
Mhm.
Yeah.
6,000 square feet. I think it's large. It's really large, but they, it's basically co-housing to
Right.
make the
Well,
housing
and
more
that's
affordable.
something I want to tell people who block things that are not single family homes in their neighborhood, right? It's
Right.
like you have this vision of single family homes, but people are creative.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure it out. And so what you think you want to be a single family home may not be, because
Right.
we are communal creatures and we need housing to survive. So,
Yeah.
so we should have options that are real options and not just like, oh, I can live in this wing of the house, or this area, right?
Right.
It's
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, people, to your point, are just getting more creative in their housing solutions, kind of out of necessity, but there are probably some
Absolutely.
really good consequences that come out of that.
Well, and like we were talking before, we need to advocate for zoning changes,
Yeah.
but that is going to take time. So in the meantime, you do need to get creative. And we were talking about, you had an example of getting very
Yeah.
creative around the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, you were going to talk about the Japanese model for zoning, I think.
Yeah, so you asked me to explain zoning like 5 minutes ago, and I did it in a very American way, right? I
Okay.
was like, there are these separate things. This came through in the 1970s. I learned this in my urban design background, right? It's like you need to separate the uses. And
Mhm.
that is
Right.
not how Japanese does it at all. They are kind of different uses are ranked according to level of nuisance. So
Mhm.
residential houses are the lowest level of nuisance, and they can be anywhere. It's like a a countrywide overlay of residential zoning.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
yeah, and then the higher in nuisance that the zoning is, so industrial uses are
Yeah.
the most nuisance, right? And so they are only allowed in specific areas. But the low nuisance zones are everywhere.
Oh,
Isn't that
that's so
wild?
That is
Yes.
fascinating, and you did a very good job explaining it. So so I'm wondering, so would you say that the Japanese model of zoning has less regulations than our zoning, or
I don't know enough about it to say,
yeah.
but just the concepts of, sort of looking at the uses in that way makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it is more flexible and allows people to build better cities, I think, given the
Yeah.
Japanese cities, than our way of looking at things
I
in
mean, it
America.
sounds to me like then it lets the private market decide, like, kind of where the housing is.
Yeah, where do people want to live?
Yeah.
It, yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, I think at some point we'll do a show about the different models of zoning and housing throughout the world, because people do it differently. Europe does it differently than the
Yeah,
United
I mean,
States.
the other key part of Japanese zoning is that it's all done at the federal level.
Which
And
will never happen here, probably. But on that note, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, Leora, so much for joining us today, and we hope you join us again. And everyone else who's listening,